in some form, we all experience heartbreak, and it is the most difficult, challenging, confusing time that you can go through. And it can be one of the times where you feel most on your own. Your experience of heartbreak will be different depending on different factors. Whether you have been through anything like this before, the relationship that you have just had, and it will be different based on your attachment style. But no one gets to bypass the pain or the difficulty that comes when you're experiencing what you are calling a heartbreak. I say that because if you're here, I'm assuming that in some way that is your experience right now. And although it might not be helpful, I do want you to know that I'm really sorry you're experiencing this, because like I say, it's a difficult time for us to go through. Things that aren't helpful in this time is just get over it, move on. There's plenty of fish in the sea. It's not worth it. You're too good for them. Just think of all of the negatives. Think of all of the things that are wrong with the person or the situation. And I just want to say that to you because I know that that can be lots of the advice that we get during these times. And that can make us feel like we should just do those things. But you know what? It's not that simple. So I am going to give you some top tips on helping yourself to heal your heart in the best possible way. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Carly Ann. I support you to interrupt and reshape your attachment style, heal past pain, and develop your true sense of self so that you can follow your dreams and have extraordinary relationships in your lifetime. Now, since you're here with me, there's a possibility that you know that I work really closely with people around attachment styles, helping them to move from an insecure attachment to a secure attachment. So I would be really interested to know if you would like me to record some content around heartbreak and a specific attachment style. So I get that I'm talking to people here who are familiar with attachment styles. So if you are and you would like a heartbreak video for those with an anxious attachment or those with an avoidant attachment, then please do be sure to get in touch and let me know. If you're watching this on YouTube, then you can let me know in the comments below. If you are listening on my podcast, then please do send me a message and let me know. So let's go through my top tips for helping you through your heartbreak, your experience today. The first is to normalize, but not to minimize this experience, okay? And that is to know that this will pass. This will pass. We know that. People heal from heartbreak. I do understand, especially given my audience, that we can get stuck in heartbreak. We can get stuck in that sense of loss. So if you have been here for a really long time and you feel like it's not healing and you're not moving on, then I do suggest that if these other tips don't work, then it might be time for you to get some help to do that, because it's not impossible. But it just might be that you need that extra bit of help to go a little bit deeper. We have enough evidence that heartbreak heals, okay? Humans heal naturally, physically, emotionally, we know that. Sometimes we do need that extra intervention, but much of the time we don't. So if you are feeling stuck, then give yourself a little bit of grace. Remember, it's not to minimize it, it's just to normalize that we do all experience some form of heartbreak in our lifetime. We can't seem to bypass it. It's a process. I'm not quite sure of the exact reason why we are supposed to experience it in our lifetime, but we do. So try and see that as the bigger picture. This is not just happening to you, and much of the time when it comes to heartbreak, it's happening for you. And I know that when you're in it, that can be one of the worst things to hear. But either you will be ready to take on that belief, which is why it's time that I say it, or me saying it, it might just it might go in a little bit where you're like, okay, there might be a bigger picture here. My second tip for you is, this one is really, really important. And this is that you grieve. You allow yourself to really feel what you feel. Now, this can be really difficult for some people, especially if you have blocked off your ability to feel or to know yourself. Maybe you have replaced it with unhelpful habits, with people, and so feeling can be really difficult for you. But it is important that you don't dismiss the parts of you that feel sad, that feel angry, that feel frustrated, to grieve this situation. Even if you've got people around you or your own inner voice saying, you shouldn't feel like this, you should be over them by now, or they didn't treat you well, they were this, they were that, just get over it. It's not helpful. Allow all parts of you to feel what you feel. The parts of you that feel like get over it as well, that exists just as much as the part of you that is sad about this sense of loss. So all the grieving, it has to happen in order for you to really move through this in a healthy way and not have it come up in your next relationship or continue to show its face. Then you need to grieve. The next is, and maybe this should have been number one, but it is to make sure at this time in your life that you are meeting your most basic needs. When we're in a state of shock or heartbreak, loss, sadness, we can neglect ourselves. We can neglect our needs and just shut everything off. And it's understandable that we do that because the emotion is so intense. But honestly, check in around food, sleep, rest. Check in that you are meeting those needs. Check in that you're meeting your need for connection. And we can isolate ourselves when we go through heartbreak, especially if you feel like, I only want this person. So perhaps if you've been the one that's been broken up with, you might feel like only one person in the whole world can make you feel better right now. But based on what you're able to give, see if you can form some sort of connection. When I'm working with people one-to-one, we'll do a hierarchy of this around connecting with themselves as well as other people. So an example might be, if you really don't feel like you can be engaging with people today, perhaps just go to a cafe and allow yourself to be in the presence of other people. Or if you have it in you to have an hour with a friend over coffee, then just arrange that hour. Keep some of your life and your routines as much as you possibly can, because otherwise there's going to be even more to have to build back up after this. So as much as you can, the most basics, check in that you can still make that happen for yourself. It's not going to be to the same level. You don't have the same capacity that you do when you're not heartbroken. So don't have super high expectations on yourself, but do see if you can just make a few shifts that are going to be helpful for you. Next, I want to talk about closure. For now, I want you to try and close the gap on what has happened. What I mean by that is asking yourself why and going over the what ifs and the shoulda, woulda, couldas, and remembering, what you thought it was all going to be. It's not going to be helpful for you. It's going to actually just keep you stuck on this loop, the why, the when, the what, the how. You're going to ask your brain these questions and it's going to try and give you an answer. Now, in some cases, you might be able to get closure from the person. Maybe it's someone that has been able to give you the why and explain it. Doesn't mean it will make sense to you, but maybe you have got some form of closure. Or you might be in the situation where you haven't got any closure. It's completely ambiguous and you're not able to get it. And I know that makes it really difficult, but that belief that we have that I can't move on until I have closure, especially when we can't have it the way that we want it, is going to keep you stuck here. So for now, you can come up with your closure. You can come up with the best reason why, or you can actually decide, and I do this with my clients, particularly that come to me that are working through heartbreak, where at the moment we put this aside. Whilst you look after your basic needs and you rebuild your life, we put the why aside. Sometimes it starts to make sense over time, but not right now when you're forcing it and when you're already overwhelmed with emotions and ideas and different thoughts. Next is to rebalance the sense of loss. This is not about replacing. I'm not here saying that you can replace this person or this situation or what it is that you're missing. But what I do want you to do is I want you to think about, what is the loss here? What is it that you're missing about this person? And quite often it might be, spending time with someone, sharing how my day was. And what you can do is, to the best that you can come up with ways to experience that in your life. I can't stress enough, I'm not saying it will be the same, but it's better than not having it at all. Don't deny yourself this completely. So for joy, play, connection, try and restore some balance. Try and think outside the box and think of ways that you can bring this back to your life. And you can look at as well what you can bring from the inside. It doesn't have to come from a friend or a family member or work. It can come from you. If you loved their confidence in, I don't know, when you went to a restaurant, go to a restaurant and bring that confidence out in yourself. Take just a tiny step to do that. It doesn't have to be external, but you might need to think outside the box. And this is something you might need, you can book a call with me, and this is something that we can work through together, because the ideas are inside of you, but sometimes we just need that person there to ask us the questions to pull that out. Next, I want to suggest that you don't get stuck in the last person on earth myth. When we experience a breakup, a heartbreak, a loss, we think, I'm never going to have that again. That was my only chance. And your brain is going to tell you all of the good about that situation, about that person. And you're going to think they were like the last person on earth. This was my only shot at love, and that's it. So we're going to need you to first just simply acknowledge that that is not true. Again, we've got enough evidence to know that people experience more than one relationship, more than one love in their lifetime. Okay, so just acknowledging that, allowing that information to go in can be really useful. But also to not only look at everything that was good, also see if you can balance it out and see what was not so great about this situation. Just to bring them down off that pedestal, that's all. It's not about focusing on the negative. It's not about bringing up negative stories just for the sake of it. It's actually about just balance, because otherwise in this situation, for certain reasons to prevent this happening again in the future, it's like a survival instinct, you will just focus on the good. So you're going to have to force yourself to notice other truths, okay? So just a list of what wasn't so good can be really useful there. And to avoid internalizing. During these times, you'll turn on yourself. Blame yourself, criticize yourself, and take it really personally. And it wouldn't surprise me if you're taking all of the responsibility for why this went the way that it did. I want you to question those thoughts, challenge those thoughts where you're doubting your worth and you're criticizing yourself. There is no way that this is all your fault. Sometimes we react to things. Sometimes our behaviors are a reaction. It can't be all your fault. You're not 1000% to blame here. So don't put that on yourself. Don't give yourself all of that responsibility. Look at the meaning that you're giving to this situation about yourself, such as that it's because I'm not good enough, other people are better, I'm never going to meet anyone. Whatever meaning you are attaching this heartbreak about yourself, see if you can look for some evidence against it. Again, Sometimes when we are in that state of heartbreak or internalizing and being negative towards ourselves, it can be really difficult to pull out evidence to suggest that it's not so personal, evidence to suggest that it's not all your fault and it's not about your self-worth. And so it might be, again, that I advise you to speak to a coach or someone that you trust so that they can help you to pull out that information, because it is there. It's just whether you can get access to it by yourself. It can be really difficult. But writing lists of your strengths, of things that you've done well in that relationship, just who you are as a person, that can be really, really useful. And finally, my tip is for you to face up and forward. Perhaps one of my favorite parts, and it can really depend where you are in your heartbreak, how long ago was the breakup, as to how much you can access this. But dig really, really deep. Dig deep with me right here, because you can make this the best thing that ever happened to you. My life turned around from a heartbreak. That is when I really got in touch with myself, really decided to overcome my barriers, my blocks, and rediscover my secure self, my whole self. And there are many, many, many stories of people where heartbreak was the absolute making of them, the start of something new. So I ask you, how can you make this the best thing that ever happened to you? I remember experiencing heartbreak, and I know that when you're not in it, it's so much easier to look back on it or to advise around it. But when you're in it, it can feel impossible. And I remember when I was in it, and there was this niggle though, thinking, this pain has to be worth something. Why do we go through this? It must be worth something. As a human, there must be a reason we go through in our lifetime, all of us, this level of pain. What is the lesson here? So we start to go into lifting, we start to move out of heartbreak and reach acceptance when we can start to look at what was the lesson. How can I make this the best thing that ever happened? This is a universal experience. What can be the good from this? This is not about toxic positivity. This is about helping you to see another side of things, helping you to look forward, to face up during this really difficult time. And so make this mean something for yourself. It's often through heartbreak that people rise. I really want you to take that away. And maybe you will just have this feeling now, or this idea of, okay, maybe this can make me in some way, that some good can come from this. Or maybe you're going to feel really motivated and start to think, okay, where can I put this energy? Where can the energy, the pain that I'm feeling, how can I move that into something that's going to benefit me? Do that when you're ready. You don't have to force it. Remember, the grieving, all the other steps that I said, they're just as important. But this is just one of my favorites, because facing up and forward, amazing. Remember, throughout all of this, give yourself grace, love, and compassion. And if you struggle to do that, here's a benefit from heartbreak. It's highlighting to you how hard you are on yourself, and that this is a time in your life to learn the power of self-love. You can absolutely work with me through this, and I want you to know that there is a process when it comes to moving through heartbreak. The work that we do together, it is slightly different. You have to be full of grace, understanding that things will feel heavier. It's going to feel a little bit more difficult. You know, there's going to be wins. You're going to see that things are going to get better, but you've got to understand that you're not going to click your fingers and it's over tomorrow, but you can feel better tomorrow. That's the thing. We can do things right in this moment after watching this to feel even 0.5% better. That's great. When we're going through heartbreak, that tiny, tiny little amount to feel better is a win. I hope you found this useful. Let me know in the comments your key takeaways. If you want me to expand on anything, let me know. Or sorry, if you're listening on the podcast, then as I said, get in touch. But if you are on YouTube, then leave me a comment. I want to know what you guys want me to expand on, because I will create some content around that. Otherwise, do not forget, you're enough, you are lovable, you are so, so worthy, and you are irreplaceable.